sich nur als Imposant.
Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. To some, it's an extreme ideology. To others, it's the very soul of India. To some, it's rebellion. To others, it's a principle of nation building. Coming soon to challenge perceptions in RSS Centenary Year, Kesariya at 100.
Hello and a very warm welcome. You are watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gambhir. Let's get started. Our top focus tonight on Gravitas. Has the Russia-Ukraine war entered a dangerous new phase, with Russia accusing Ukraine of trying to attack Putin's residence, warning that the response has already been decided? We tell you all about the angry reactions against Zelensky coming in from different quarters. And could this fresh round of tensions derail the fragile peace efforts? That's coming up in just a bit. Also on the show for you tonight, telling you all about how Trump is threatening Iran with fresh strikes. Where are the China-Taiwan tensions headed? Should the world be worried? We are getting you the complete story in just a bit. All this and more lined up for you. The Russia-Ukraine war may have just crossed a dangerous line. It's something that the world feared all along. Moscow is accusing Kyiv of striking at the very heart of Russian power, the residence of the Russian president, warning that the response has already been decided. Now, this alleged attack has ignited outrage. It's rattled world capitals, invited angry reactions, threatening to also derail the fragile peace efforts that appear to be finally beginning to take shape. Ukraine is calling the entire incident fiction, while Russia is calling it terrorism. And as the rhetoric sharpens, the risk of escalation is growing even further. Russia says Ukraine launched a wave of drones at one of Putin's official homes in the Novgorod region. The foreign minister of Russia claiming Russian air defenses intercepted 91 drones aimed towards Putin's residence. That's the number. In fact, also saying that Moscow has now already decided when and where it will strike back. Kyiv, on the other hand, calls the claim a staged narrative meant to sabotage diplomacy. Zelensky called it, quote-unquote, a complete fabrication intended to justify additional attacks against Ukraine. But remember what Zelensky said just last week? During his Christmas Eve address, without actually naming Putin, Zelensky said, "May he perish," quote-unquote. Let's just play out that statement for you.
Today we all share one dream, and we make one wish together. May he perish, each of us may think privately, But when we turn to God, of course, we ask for more. We ask for peace for Ukraine. We fight for it. And we pray for it.
Вона не здатна окупувати чи розбомбити.
The Kremlin saying US President Donald Trump reacted with shock and was outraged when he heard about the alleged strike during a call with Putin, further stating that Russia will now toughen its negotiating position, not abandon talks. The Kremlin spokesperson said, I'm quoting now, "This terrorist action is aimed at collapsing the negotiation process. The diplomatic consequence will be to toughen the negotiating position of the Russian Federation." So that's the big message coming in from Russia. Former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev, a close ally of Putin, accused Zelensky of derailing settlement and seeking escalation. And the timing of this fallout also complicates a lot of things, because just days earlier, Trump said, remember, that a peace deal looked closer than ever after meeting Zelensky. Trump said he was informed about the alleged attack by the Russian president during a phone call. Here's what he said.
One thing to be offensive, because they were offensive. It's another thing to attack his house. It's not the right time to do any of that. And can't do it. And I learned about it from President Putin today. I was very angry about it.
And while the Indian Prime Minister, in a post on social media, said, and I'm quoting here, deeply concerned by reports of the targeting of the residence of the President of the Russian Federation, ongoing diplomatic efforts offer the most viable path towards ending hostilities and achieving peace. We urge all concerned to remain focused on these efforts and to avoid any actions that could undermine them. China also urged both sides to prevent any spillover and to avoid escalation, while the UAE strongly condemned the attempt to target Putin's residence. On the battlefield, meanwhile, the Russian Defense Ministry released video of the deployment of the nuclear-capable hypersonic Oreshnik missile system in Belarus, a significant development that also bolsters Moscow's ability to deliver missiles across Europe, make it faster for the Russian nuclear missiles to reach European targets in the event of a war. And all of this unfolding as negotiators continue to work on a US-drafted framework for a peace plan. Tonight, Russia's accusation and Putin's largest signal that he will expand his war aims, placing that progress in limbo to say the least. And as the world reaction also hardens, hopes for a breakthrough appear bleak, at least at this point. US President Donald Trump has issued a fresh threat of strikes on Iran on Monday, turning up the pressure on Hamas as the Gaza truce falters. In remarks made right after meeting with the Israeli Prime Minister, Trump warned Tehran that America could support another major strike on Iran, were it to resume rebuilding its ballistic missile or nuclear weapons programs.
Now I hear that Iran is trying to build up again, and if they are, we're going to have to knock them down. We'll knock them down. We'll knock the hell out of them, but hopefully that's not happening. I heard Iran wants to make a deal. If they want to make a deal, that's much smarter. You know, they could have made a deal the last time before we went through, you know, a big attack on them, and they decided not to make the deal. They wish they made that deal. So I think, again, they should make a deal. They want to make a deal, but sometimes that doesn't happen.
And in that same speech, standing shoulder to shoulder with Netanyahu, Trump also warned Hamas of severe consequences if it does not disarm. And Trump issued the threat to Iran as he hosted the Israeli leader for lunch at his Mar-a-Lago residence in Florida on Monday. In statements made to the reporters before and after that meeting, the two leaders said that they were in broad agreement on most issues, from next steps in Gaza and the possibility of bombing Iran again to how very deserving Trump is of getting another award. The meeting coming in as the two sides tried to cement a lasting end to Israel's war with Hamas in Gaza and ensure broader peace throughout the region. Trump, who has broached a potential nuclear deal with Tehran in recent months, said his talks with Netanyahu focused on advancing the fragile Gaza peace deal he brokered and addressing Israeli concerns over Iran and over Hezbollah in Lebanon. But remember, Iran and Israel fought that 12-day war in June. Just last week, Iran said that it had conducted missile exercises for the second time this month. Netanyahu had also said last week that Israel was not seeking a confrontation with Iran, but was aware of the reports, and said that he would raise Tehran's activities with Donald Trump. It seems like he did, and his plan seems to have worked. But Iran was in no mood to take any warnings from the United States. Today, Iran's parliament speaker hit back at Trump's warnings, saying that Tehran has the right to defend itself and that its future actions may be unexpected.
I emphasize that Iran does not seek permission from anyone to defend itself. The Iranian people's response to any widespread adventurism and evil is unapologetic and even unexpected.
And when they met on Monday, Trump and Netanyahu spent much of their time in public together, exchanging compliments, as both sought to show that their relationship remains better than ever, despite the occasional strains of the past year and Trump's growing wariness of some of Israel's actions. The mutual flattery was capped by Netanyahu's announcement that he would make Trump the first non-Israeli recipient of the Israel Prize for Peace. Trump, who called the award really surprising, praised Netanyahu as a wartime leader, downplaying concerns that Israel is not moving fast enough towards the next phase of the Gaza peace deal. And the US president instead put the onus almost entirely on Hamas. But Trump did talk about West Bank. He opposed Israel annexing the area, aligning himself with many Western and Arab countries on the issue. That's significant. Remember, the Israeli government has talked about annexing parts of the West Bank and has recently also intensified its military operations in the occupied region. More importantly, Trump and Netanyahu failed to reach any sort of an agreement on how to actually move forward to the second phase of the ceasefire plan for Gaza, which is a key sticking point when it comes to slowing down what's happening on the ground and slowing down the work towards permanent peace and an eventual rebuilding effort of the devastated Palestinian enclave. But then you ask Trump, he seems to have downplayed the lack of progress on Monday. He has insisted that he was not concerned about Israel's actions in the region, even though its military has killed hundreds of Palestinians since the ceasefire took effect in October. Instead, he argued that the plan's success depends on Hamas agreeing to disarmament. But analysts say that his latest statements are unlikely to alleviate concerns within the Trump administration itself that Netanyahu is slow walking the move to the next phase. The concern really is that it leaves America mired in the West Asia tensions at a point when the GOP is urging Trump to turn his focus to domestic matters. Shifting focus now, China has escalated the military pressure on Taiwan. We've been telling you about this. It has launched a second straight day of large-scale war games now, including live-fire rocket strikes in waters surrounding the island. The PLA's Eastern Theater Command carried out long-range precision strikes to the north and south of Taiwan. It claims all designated targets were hit. Footage released by the Chinese military appears to show rocket launches over the Taiwan Strait as Coast Guard and naval vessels operated close to the island's shores. The drills were codenamed Justice Mission 2025. And they represent China's most extensive military exercises around Taiwan. Live fire operations were announced across multiple zones, disrupting both air and sea traffic around the island until the evening hours. Taiwan, for that matter, has strongly condemned the exercises, calling them highly provocative and reckless. Taipei accuses Beijing of continuously undermining regional stability and the international order. It warns that the drills pose serious risks to security in the Taiwan Strait.
China has recently continued in the surrounding sea and airspace of the Indo-Pacific region, repeatedly through exercises as well as intrusions by military aircraft and warships, carrying out various military threats and gray zone harassment. Such actions fully demonstrate that China not only fails to uphold global and regional peace and stability.
And then reacting to the drills, local Taiwanese vendors also expressed concern as their baskets are running dry. Listen in to some of these reactions.
The intimidation effect isn't that strong for us. This isn't something new. They threaten all the time. China threatens any country it sees as a threat. With cross-strait tensions continuing to escalate, whether it involves live fire or not, we still have to trust our own defense capabilities. Beyond that, I believe Taiwan has many partners who would come to help us. This time, the message is clear. Apart from provocation, China wants to test where our bottom line is.
Now, the military posturing also comes against the backdrop of heightened tensions, of course, and the exercises started just 11 days after the US announced a record $11.1 billion arms package for Taiwan. That drew sharp anger from China. China, remember, views any foreign military support for Taiwan as interference in what it calls an internal affair. Regional powers are watching the developments very closely. South Korea, for that matter, has urged restraint, calling for cross-strait relations to develop peacefully through dialogue and cooperation. Seoul reiterated its long-standing position of supporting peace and stability in the Taiwan Strait, even as it maintains formal diplomatic ties only with Beijing. China continues to claim Taiwan as part of its sovereign territory. It has never ruled out the use of force to bring the self-ruled island under its control. Taiwan, which is a vibrant democracy of more than 23 million people, rejects those claims and insists that its future must be decided by its own people. And here's a quick look at what else is lined up for you on the show tonight. We're telling you all about Rolls-Royce making inroads into India, aiming to make the country a home market. This is coming up in just a bit. A 2,000-year-old Buddhist site has been discovered in Jammu and Kashmir's Baramulla, getting you the complete story. Rolls-Royce, a name that has stood for engineering excellence, quiet power and technological leadership for more than a century. Today, it is turning its eyes towards India, not as a customer, but as a home market. The British aero engine giant is exploring making India its third home market outside the UK, placing it in the same league as the US and Germany. Now, this is not a symbolic gesture alone. It's a strategic statement, one that signals India's arrival as a global center for advanced engineering and defense technology. At the heart of this shift is a big investment plan. Rolls-Royce says it wants to design and develop a next-generation aero engine in India to power the country's future stealth fighter, the Advanced Medium Combat Aircraft. And this would place India among a very small group of nations with indigenous fighter engine capability. And what makes this offer even more significant is the depth of this partnership. Rolls-Royce has indicated that the entire engine design can be done in India with technology transfer and joint ownership of all new intellectual property. For a country that has long depended on imported engines, this could mark a generational turning point. And the vision extends beyond the skies. The same engine core, Rolls-Royce says, can be adapted for marine use, including electric propulsion, directly addressing the Indian Navy's future requirements. Very few companies in the world have the ability to convert aero engine technology for naval applications. Rolls-Royce is one of them. The partnership is set to deepen on land as well. The company is expected to sign 2 key agreements with Indian Defence public sector units, one for engines for the Arjun main battle tank and another for future combat vehicles, further strengthening India's defence manufacturing base. And this strategic bet on India is already backed by action. Rolls-Royce has inaugurated its largest and most advanced global capability center in Bengaluru, a 700-seater facility that now serves as a critical engineering hub for the company worldwide. Over 3,000 professionals work for Rolls-Royce in India today, including more than 2,000 high-skilled engineers. And for India, it's more about investments or jobs. It's a major drive for defense modernization, the Make in India push, and also its focus on high-end manufacturing as a century-old global icon, choosing India as a place where its next chapter can be written. And in India, the state of West Bengal approaching election season. Top leaders of the BJP, the main opposition party in the state, taking turns to visit. Currently, the Union Home Minister, BJP leader Amit Shah, is leading the charge against the long-time Chief Minister of the state, Mamata Banerjee. And just earlier in the day, Amit Shah set the tone for the campaign season. Addressing the press conference in the state capital, he laid out the BJP's poll pitch for those elections. Fear and corruption of the incumbent government, taming infiltration of illegal immigrants and ensuring border security. Listen in.
क्योंकि आपकी निगहबानी में घुसपैठ कराई जाती है और बंगाल को धीरे धीरे डेमोग्राफी चेंज कर कर आप आपकी वोट बैंक को पुख्ता करनी चाहती है, मगर ये लंबा नहीं चलेगा। बंगाल की जनता अब जान गई है और इसके खिलाफ लामबंद भी हो रही है। और मुझे मालूम है अगला चुनाव घुसपैठियों को निकालने के मुद्दे पर और घुसपैठ रोकने के मुद्दे पर लड़े जाने वाला है।
The BJP seeking to dethrone Mamata Banerjee, who has been the state's chief minister since 2011. In 2021, the BJP managed to secure 38.5% of the votes, 77 seats in the 294-member assembly, making it only fit to lead as the opposition in the assembly. The party has seen growth in percentage of votes since 2016. Amit Shah now says the state is ready for a post-Mamata Banerjee era. The incumbent chief minister, on the other hand, is betting big on the voter list revision exercise carried out by the Election Commission of India that has triggered political uproar. Addressing a public gathering, Mamata Banerjee said the poor are being tortured in the name of this revision ahead of the polls and vowed to protest in Delhi if even one legitimate voter's name is omitted from the list. Elections are expected to be held during March or April 2026. And the Election Commission is yet to announce the specific dates. But before the high-stakes electoral process starts, the battleground is already heating up. All right, moving on for now. The Gulf is split over Yemen, and on Tuesday, Saudi Arabia-led coalition forces bombed the UAE weapons shipment destined for separatist forces reportedly. Not just that, Saudi Arabia declared the UAE-backed separatist advance in Yemen a threat to its national security, calling Abu Dhabi's actions highly dangerous. And with this, the rivalry between the Gulf monarchies over Yemen boiled over into an open dispute. The Saudi bombing of arms shipment signaling a new escalation in the tensions between the two sides. But what is this all about, and how does it actually affect the entire region? Let's just decode this for you. Starting off with how on Tuesday, Saudi Arabia declared a UAE-backed separatist advance in Yemen as a threat to the kingdom's national security, like we said. Riyadh also called Abu Dhabi's actions highly dangerous, shedding the spotlight on the growing rift between the Gulf monarchies. The strongly worded foreign ministry statement came hours after the Saudi-led coalition fighting in Yemen said it had struck a UAE weapons shipment destined for separatist forces reportedly. The Saudi foreign ministry statement read, and I'm quoting now, "The steps taken by the UAE are considered highly dangerous. The kingdom stresses that any threat to its national security is a red line, and the kingdom will not hesitate to take all necessary steps and measures to confront and neutralize any such threat," quote unquote. That statement on your screen. And the separatists of the Southern Transitional Council, the STC, are backed by the UAE and are seeking to revive the formerly independent state of South Yemen. In recent weeks, in fact, they have made sweeping territorial gains. Also in that lightning offensive, experts say that the successes have embarrassed Saudi Arabia, which is a regional heavyweight, as well as the main backer of the internationally recognized Yemeni government. The latest Saudi action to bomb the arms shipment, further straining the ties between Riyadh and Abu Dhabi, because both have been backing competing sides in Yemen's decade-long war against the Iranian-backed Houthi rebels. And these tensions have split open at a time when there is already a lot of unease across the wider Red Sea region. And the Saudi-led coalition justified the bombing by saying, and I'm quoting here, given the danger and escalation posed by these weapons. The coalition air forces carried out a limited military operation this morning, targeting weapons and combat vehicles that had been unloaded from the two ships at the port of Al Mukalla. Footage of the port reportedly showed dozens of parked military vehicles and pickups, several of which were burnt out, smoldering, as the workers hosed them down. And after the strikes, the leader of Yemen's Presidential Council, which sits atop the Aden-based government, declared a state of emergency and cancelled a security pact with the UAE. This after the separatist forces of the UAE-backed STC had seized large parts of the territory, reportedly. Now, just to be clear here, the STC is also a key member of the Yemeni government, which is currently looking like a patchwork of groups just held together only because of the opposition to the Houthis, who control northern and western Yemen, including Sana'a. Over Yemen, Saudi Arabia and the UAE, traditionally close allies who joined forces in Yemen against the Houthis, have increasingly been at odds. It has to do with the fact that the conflict is happening at their doorstep and affects their respective countries as well, of course. And the way things stand right now, Saudi Arabia stands by a demand from Yemen's Presidential Council for Emirati forces to withdraw from the country within 24 hours, so the clock is ticking. Saudi Arabia has also urged Abu Dhabi to cut off military and financial support for the Yemeni groups. Mukalla, where the Saudi bombing took place reportedly, is in Yemen's Hadramaut governorate, which the UAE-backed separatist forces had seized in recent days. The port city is about 500 kilometers from Aden, the seat of power for the anti-Houthi forces in Yemen. The Arctic, once a frozen buffer, is fast becoming a whole new front line. China, which pretty much has no Arctic coastline, is rapidly expanding its presence across the high north. And the Chinese research submarines, for the first time, traveled thousands of feet beneath the Arctic ice this summer. Earlier, Chinese military and research vessels operated around Alaska's Arctic waters in unprecedented numbers. And just last year, Chinese and Russian military planes flew patrols near Alaska for the first time, with Chinese long-range bombers operating from a Russian airbase. So a lot has been happening. And in October, China sent a cargo ship to the Polish port of Gdansk by skirting the North Pole. The Arctic passage was 2 weeks faster than the traditional route via the Suez Canal. The Arctic route, accessible only a few months per year, was previously impassable for merchant vessels. Chinese officials saying they have plans to expand trans-Arctic cargo traffic with Russia, particularly imports of liquefied natural gas. And for China, the mastery of Arctic travel could yield valuable data about the natural resources awaiting below the melting ice caps. And China views future sea routes through the high north as a shortcut for global commerce. It will significantly reduce travel time for commercial shipping. Not just that, it will help Beijing position nuclear-armed submarines closer to potential targets, including the United States. And China has declared itself a near-Arctic power, an informal designation that Beijing hopes will place it alongside the US and Russia. China's foreign ministry, in fact, says its activities in the Arctic are reasonable and lawful, maintaining that it contributes to the maintenance and promotion of peace, stability, sustainable development in the region. Tensions over the high north, renewed by Russia's Ukraine war, are being amplified by China's reach. And until recently, the Arctic was dominated by the US, Russia, NATO allies, and now China's arrival, adding a whole new dimension, a powerful new player to an already tense region, where Russia is also expanding its military footprint. In fact, the US and NATO worry most about sea warfare. Washington and allies are training more Arctic troops in response to the new dangers, and they have beefed up sub-hunting patrols out of Iceland and other parts. President Trump struck a shipbuilding deal with Finland to expand the US icebreaker fleet, and it has pressured Denmark into expanding defenses in and around Greenland. China denies any military intent in the Arctic. Beijing insists that its activities are purely scientific and commercial. But the US says the warning signs are already frozen in the ice. For decades, Kashmir has been seen either through the prism of its scenic beauty or geopolitics. But a recent discovery buried under the earth for nearly 2,000 years is now forcing a rethink. In Jammu and Kashmir's Baramulla district, archaeologists have discovered a major Buddhist site that reveals a forgotten chapter, in a way, in Kashmir's history. Archaeologists have dug up a 2,000-year-old Buddhist complex dating back to the Kushan period, a time when Buddhism flourished across the Indian subcontinent and Central Asia. The site includes stupa foundations, monastic cells, structural remains resembling the architectural layout of the Gandhara civilization. But what makes the discovery even more extraordinary is how it began. A set of blurred photographs of 3 stupas that were preserved in a French museum caught the attention of the researchers. Those images basically triggered a fresh investigation, eventually leading the archaeologists to Jihanpura. Drone surveys later confirmed the mounds scattered across the village were not natural formations but were man-made. And experts now believe Jihanpura may have been a major Buddhist center, possibly linked to the Kushan capital, as mentioned in ancient texts, but which was never conclusively located. The location of the mounds also offers another clue. Jihanpura sits on an ancient trade and pilgrimage route which connects Gandhara with Kashmir, which suggests that the Kashmir Valley was once deeply integrated into Buddhist networks of learning, travel and commerce. And the excavation was jointly carried out by the Department of Archives, Archaeology and Museums of Jammu and Kashmir University. And according to the officials, reportedly, the site reveals a layered civilization, a discovery which could redefine the ancient past of the valley. Prime Minister Modi has called the discovery a proud moment and said that the site opens a window into Kashmir's glorious past and confirms the historical importance of Jihanpura. For historians, meanwhile, the discovery reinforces Kashmir's role as a confluence of civilizations, not just a geographical crossroads, but a cultural one, of course. We have all dealt with hiccups at some point or the other. We are way too familiar with that feeling of that sudden jolt in our chest when hiccups occur. We hold our breath, we perhaps sip some water, tilt our head upwards, try and do whatever we can, hope they disappear. But sometimes they just do not want to leave you. Imagine hiccups that refuse to stop. They go on for days, weeks, perhaps even months. Sounds annoying, right? Of course it can be. And for one political leader, doctors had to take a rather extraordinary step. Surgery. That's right, a surgery for hiccups. I'm talking about Brazil's jailed former President Jair Bolsonaro. Doctors say he underwent another medical procedure to silence persistent, painful hiccups that simply would not let up. Surgeons performed what's called a phrenic nerve block. They targeted the nerve that controls the diaphragm, the muscle that helps us breathe. First on the right side, then on the left. By interrupting those signals, the doctors tried to calm the spasms triggering his hiccups. And this makes the former Brazilian president's second procedure in just 3 days, a significant one following the earlier surgery linked to the ongoing health complications. Bolsonaro, remember, is serving a 27-year sentence linked to an alleged coup plot. Brazil's Supreme Court approved his transfer to a hospital in the capital so the specialist could treat the condition. Bolsonaro's medical team says he is stable, may not need to stay hospitalized much longer if the recovery continues as expected. And his wife has said that he had battled recurring hiccups for nearly 9 months before the doctors finally decided that surgery was necessary. For most of us, hiccups can be quite annoying. But for many, like the former Brazilian president, there is no other way but to go in for surgery. In fact, this is what's been reported. A powerful bomb cyclone barreled across the United States, unleashing severe winter weather across parts of several states. Thousands of flights witnessed delays, cancellations across the northeast US due to snow, leaving travelers stranded during the holiday season. Take a look.
Welcome. Thank you, Dad.
You're welcome.
That's the man right there.
Snow fell overnight in upstate New York as the National Weather Service issued a winter storm warning until New Year's Eve. Forecasters say the winter storm intensified quickly to meet the criteria of a bomb cyclone, a system that rapidly strengthens as the pressure drops. Parts of the central U.S. woke up on Monday to freezing temperatures. Freezing rain was reported in parts of northern New York, with the threat extending into Vermont, New Hampshire. According to Vermont State Police, they responded to 92 crashes overnight, 3 of which resulted in injuries. The storm also made driving dangerous. In Iowa, intense blizzard conditions resulted in dozens of crashes, including one that killed a person during the storm, according to the state troopers. The winter situation remains fragile across the U.S. More than 153,000 people faced power outages on Tuesday, more than a third of them in Michigan alone. Passengers face long delays and cancellations at major airports, including Chicago and Minneapolis. Meanwhile, the South braced for severe thunderstorms as a powerful cold front known as a blue norther swept through the region, ending days of record warmth. Parts like Atlanta and Dallas are expected to witness sharp temperature drops by Tuesday, and the National Weather Service has now predicted more inclement weather conditions for eastern U.S., including quick bursts of heavy snow, gusty winds known as snow squalls. The New York governor warning that whiteout conditions are expected on Tuesday in parts of the state. For decades, China's public school system has been held up as a factory of discipline, excellence, academic rigor. Long school days, endless homework, high-stakes examinations that can decide a child's entire future in a way. But now a quiet question is lingering on. Inside Chinese homes, is this system preparing children for the future, or is it breaking them under the weight of the present? In Shanghai, a 14-year-old girl is living a very different reality. She no longer sits in a classroom for 10 hours a day. She doesn't stay up late memorizing what's in her textbooks. Instead, her school day unfolds in her living room through languages, art, science, even rock climbing. She is homeschooled in a country where homeschooling is not legalized as such. She left Shanghai's grueling public school system 3 years ago. Her school days used to end at 5 in the evening, followed by 4 more hours of homework and tutoring at night. Next year, she would have faced the high school entrance exams, one of China's most pressurized milestones.
Well, instead of just doing that stressful exam in the school, I will do the things I was interested on. Maybe in the future, I said before, like I like AI combined with the languages. So I will study a lot of languages to prepare for my future career. And I'm also very interested in acupuncture. Maybe I will consider to be an acupuncturist in the future.
Her parents decided enough was enough. They worried their daughter was struggling to keep up, and more importantly, that the skills that she was being pushed to learn may soon be irrelevant in a world that is fast being transformed by technology and AI. And today her schedule is designed by her family. Tutors come in for science, math, Spanish, fitness. Her mother teaches her acupuncture. After online classes, she heads to a climbing gym and is often the youngest person there.
I think that it determined what I'm doing now. Homeschooling provides ample free time. So with this free time, you can reflect on yourself. You ask yourself, what do I like? What do I want? What is the meaning of the things I do?
And her story is not an isolated one. Only a few thousand children out of 150 million children in China are officially homeschooled, but education researchers saying that number has been growing steadily for years now as more parents quietly question a system built around exams, rankings, relentless competition. And the numbers are stark. They tell a story. Youth unemployment in China remains high. Even graduates from elite universities struggle to find work, reportedly. While the authorities have cracked down on cram schools, underground tutoring continues. Experts say what is changing is not just education, but also belief.
And now you look at computer science graduates are not getting jobs because of AI. Editing, writing, marketing, a lot of those things. So I think that overall is the economic reality is forcing parents to rethink about, is it worth it to push your children through the hardship of preparing for the test? Or you want to take your children out for homeschooling or have a different kind of a lifestyle.
Homeschooling in China still operates in a gray zone, tolerated but not legalized. And even parents who embrace it admit that it comes at a cost, especially when it comes to social life and peer interaction. What awaits the world in the new year? That's the big question. Some predictions are already in. Some shamans in Peru have made striking predictions for the world of global politics. The end of Russia-Ukraine war and a serious illness for US President Donald Trump might be on the cards. And these predictions are part of an annual ritual, of course. Wearing traditional ceremonial attire, about a dozen of them, shamans, healers in Peru, gathered at a beach on Monday. They set up an altar decorated with photographs of prominent world leaders, including Donald Trump, Venezuela's Nicolas Maduro, the Russian president, the Chinese president, and the president of Ukraine, surrounded by flowers, leaves, skulls. And during the ceremony, they waved flowers before a poster of Donald Trump and predicted that he would fall seriously ill next year. They also foretold that the Russia-Ukraine war would come to an end next year, bringing lasting peace. Another crucial prediction focused on the downfall of the president of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro, with the shamans claiming that he would ultimately flee the country.
The conflict between Russia and Ukraine is in conversation, as if they were calling for attention. I see this conflict will end. It will finish. They will raise the flag of peace. In 2026, we see Mr. Nicolas Maduro defeated. Nicolas Maduro will flee Venezuela. He will not be captured. He will flee Venezuela.
And last year, Peruvian shamans had predicted a bizarre alliance between Trump and Putin, which would exclude China and potentially trigger a third world war. The group had also predicted natural disasters in Canada and Japan. With roughly 267 million tobacco users, India is the world's second largest consumer. And now the country is all set to hike tobacco prices significantly higher. In the new year, the government is likely to notify the latest Central Excise Amendment Bill passed in the Parliament early this month. With the new law set to kick in, the retail prices of tobacco products are set to surge by 5 times across the country. The real question, though, is will the sky-high prices actually deter consumption, or will they actually push Indians to look for cheaper options, putting their health at risk even further? India generates substantial revenue from tobacco taxes, exceeding 70,000 to 76,000 crore rupees, or over $8 to $9 billion annually. So far, the revenue is in sharp contrast with the minimal funding for tobacco control programs. That highlights a major public health contradiction where massive tax income coexists with high tobacco-related deaths. But now the government is all set to reverse that trend. The Central Excise Amendment Bill clears the path for a hike in cigarettes, cigars, hookah, tobacco, chewing tobacco. Cigarettes that cost 18 rupees now could jump to 72 rupees per stick. Smoking mixtures will see the steepest jump, with excise rising 5-fold to 300% from 60% now. The tax on chewing tobacco, meanwhile, will reportedly increase to 100% from 25% currently. Hookah tobacco will attract 40% tax, up from 25%. Meanwhile, in Asia, India already has one of the highest taxes on tobacco products. The excise duty hike is in addition to the 40% GST on sin goods, which includes tobacco. The government's move shows its intention to use tax as a public health tool in a way and to align with the WHO's recommendation. The price hike will have a significant impact on the country's finances. Tobacco marks a significant portion of the Indian government's indirect revenue. The centre's latest push comes after a broader, sweeping GST cut, which already lowered the tax revenues. The excise tax hike plan has shown mixed reactions on social platforms. Meanwhile, some welcome the government's move as a significant health measure, while others have questioned if it will actually deter smokers and tobacco users. But then the trends after the government notifies the excise bill and manufacturers hike prices will show the real impact. Can you try and guess your country will transform to what extent 2 decades later? Can you believe that someone actually predicted the e-commerce boom years in advance? Well, this panned out in the US 27 years ago. In 1998, when people still had landline phones and Bill Clinton was the president of America, Gallup conducted a telephonic survey of 1,055 Americans. They were asked about their predictions for what is likely to happen or not happen by 2025. Remarkably, many respondents got it spot on. As we're all set to bid goodbye to this year, let's just have a look at the survey results. 22 years before the world was overwhelmed by COVID-19, 75% of the respondents predicted the emergence of a deadly new disease. Can you believe this? Interestingly, 74% accurately gauged the evolving societal dynamics by envisaging that gay marriages will become commonplace in the US. What about the political predictions? They were a mixed bag. 69% got it right by forecasting that the US will get its first black president. The belief of 64% respondents that their country will elect a female president by 2025 remained a pipe dream. But a majority of the respondents were also realistic about what cannot be possible by 2025. Let's give you a sense of that now. Over 60% expressed faith that neither will space travel become common for Americans, nor will human beings make contact with aliens. So they got it right there. They also refused to buy the prospect that most people will be self-employed by now. The survey also indicated pessimism, with the majority of the respondents expecting life to get worse for the poor in America. A rather uncomfortable reality also came to the fore. 60% of respondents back then were satisfied with the state of affairs in the US as compared to 24% in the latest Gallup poll survey. So what does the future really have in store for your country? Hopefully the new year will bring in more answers. A hospital is not exactly the ideal place for a celebration, right? Can you imagine getting married inside a hospital? You're probably thinking, why would anyone do that? You would think that a hospital would be the last option on the list of possible venues for a wedding ceremony, right? Not exactly. In fact, it is being chosen by couples. But why would someone want to marry in a hospital? Well, here's why. The term here is a deathbed marriage. As morbid as that sounds, it's quite a practical move in a way. Couples are opting for it for reasons like complications with inheritance tax and widows' pensions. So basically, cohabiting couples are choosing to marry at that stage of their lives. It can also be viewed as an extremely romantic move, a loving gesture for a dying partner. Or it could also be just about finances alone. But the fact is, there has reportedly been a surge in deathbed marriages, and that's significant. Marriages at places one would never even think of, like a hospital. Such marriages or civil partnerships can happen at a very short notice, given the urgency of it all. This is also linked to the rise in the number of couples cohabiting. In England and Wales, figures show the proportion has increased. For example, such deathbed marriages could be happening because of the realization that the partner will be hit with an inheritance tax bill or perhaps miss out on a widow's pension if they remain unmarried. So that age-old notion of till death do us part, taking on a whole new meaning, with couples choosing to say I do, with death lurking around the corner. Shifting focus, after nearly 2 decades, the ancient Hindu festival of Basant Panchami is set to make a comeback in Pakistan. Lahore is bringing back the spring festival, known for bright kites and music. In 2007, the then Punjab Chief Minister had banned the festival, citing an increasing number of deaths and serious injuries caused to motorcyclists by prohibiting sharp strings, as well as judicial pressure. And now, the Pakistan government aims to revive it, albeit with tight regulations. The Punjab Assembly, in fact, recently passed a new kite flying law. It lets the district officials allow Basant only on set days and in chosen locations. So in this effect, Lahore's Deputy Commissioner has now approved celebrations for 3 days in February 2026. He says the city will allow kite making and sales under strict controls. Only registered sellers can offer approved kites and string. The string must be cotton, not metal or plastic. While sharp or dangerous threads remain illegal, the local police has been directed to seize banned material, officials saying they want culture and safety together. And they believe Basant Festival can help revive a tradition rooted in history, one that is admired the world over, as well as lift the public mood if everyone follows the regulations. Beyoncé is now a billionaire, making her the 5th musician to reach the milestone. The Cowboy Carter era did not just break streaming records, it acted as the final financial lever in a decades-long masterclass in business ownership. Beyoncé now joining an ultra-exclusive club alongside her husband, Jay-Z, and fellow icons Taylor Swift, Rihanna, Bruce Springsteen. According to Forbes, in fact, Beyoncé's net worth has surged from approximately $800 million in late 2024 to over $1 billion by the close of 2025. The primary engine of the growth? The Cowboy Carter World Tour, which grossed over $400 million in ticket sales and an additional $50 million in merchandise. Unlike many artists who rent out their talent, Beyoncé's wealth is built on Parkwood Entertainment, her 15-year-old management and production company. By producing her tours in-house, she retains a significantly higher percentage of the back-end profits, a strategy that saw her take home an estimated $148 million in 2025 alone, while the billionaire list was once the domain of tech moguls and oil heirs. We are witnessing a cultural shift where women in music are using the stadium stage as a corporate boardroom. And for many years, the path to $1 billion for female artists was through ancillary industries, perhaps. Rihanna, with a record deal of $1.4 billion, reached the mark primarily through Fenty Beauty and her other brand, proving that a global brand can outpace a record deal. Selena Gomez, with a gross of $1.3 billion, entered the ranks in 2024, largely via the massive success of Rare Beauty. Taylor Swift pioneered this in 2023 with the Eras Tour. Beyoncé has now cemented it. This is not just about singing, it's about the industrialization of the concert experience. The stage is now set. The new Silicon Valley, by owning her own production company, Beyoncé bypassing the traditional middleman fees that historically drained artist profits. In an era of digital abundance, the live experience is the only remaining unreplicable commodity. Fans are no longer just buying a ticket, they are investing in a cultural event that drives local economies. In fact, this is also unlocking a fresh wave of touring and sponsorship revenue. For the modern female superstar, the world tour is no longer a marketing tool for an album. The album is the marketing tool for the tour. And the tour is the engine of an empire. For today's top musicians, success is no longer measured only by hit songs or album sales. Ownership, touring power, direct control over production have become the real drivers of wealth. With that, it's a wrap on this edition of Gravitas Tonight. This is me, Molly Gambhir, signing off. Thanks for watching.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch. WION, India's global voice, the channel